Howdy guys, my name is Abby. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. Today I'm going to be showing you a bunch of cruelty-free and vegan drugstore makeup products. If you're new to cruelty-free makeup or new to makeup in general, then maybe you can find some products that you can try. I've got a bunch of products sitting here in front of me so I don't forget anything. So we're just going to chat about makeup for however long this video ends up being. I really don't know. If you are into cruelty-free and vegan makeup, stick around. I do 3 videos a week all about cruelty-free and vegan makeup, and I also have a blog and an Instagram and a Twitter, so those will all be linked in the description box, as well as I'm going to try to link all of these products if they will fit in the character limit, but I'll link mostly everything that I can. So if you are new to my channel or you just want to know a little bit more about what I consider to be cruelty-free, I do have other videos related to that, but the short version is that I use logicalharmony.net to determine which brands that I use that are cruelty-free. So all of these products may not, like every single color that they're available in, may not be vegan, but just make sure you check on that before you buy anything. I think only one of the lip liners though is the only one that has a non-vegan shade. Let's go ahead and jump into the products. I'll just go by category and talk about the ones that are my favorites from my collection. First up, we have primers. So a face primer is going to go underneath of your foundation. So after you moisturize or do your skincare, then you put on a primer and then your foundation or concealer, whatever you're using. And I would recommend the e.l.f. Poreless Putty Primer. They do have a few different varieties of this. I just have the original one, but they have a dewy one and also a mattifying one. If you're new to makeup, a primer is going to smooth out your texture of your face, like your pores, and if you have one that's a little bit more hydrating, it's going to help with dry patches. And the mattifying ones will help control oil. So I feel like the original Poreless Putty Primer from e.l.f. is good, like middle ground, like anybody can really use it. And honestly, I don't think that you have to use a primer every time that you do your foundation. I did a video about a month or so ago about testing, like I put primer on half of my face and no primer on the other half, and it really didn't make that much difference as far as longevity of the makeup, but it did help it apply smoother. So for primer, I would suggest the e.l.f. Poreless Putty Primer. And for foundation, I have a lot of foundations and most of them are not drugstore. I do have a few here in the drugstore price range. I also have a full list of cruelty-free and vegan foundations that are available for $16 or less. That's generally the drugstore price range. And on that blog post, I also have a little table to help you figure out which foundation is best for you, because you want to take into consideration your skin type and also how much coverage that you want or need. So for me, I prefer a matte full coverage foundation, and my skin type is oily to combination. So something that works for me is not going to work for somebody who has really dry skin and prefers a dewy foundation. So check out that guide. I'll link to that blog post in the description box of this video. But my absolute favorite foundation is the NYX Can't Stop Won't Stop. And this has an amazing shade range. Basically anybody could find their foundation shade in this range of foundation, duh. But this is a full coverage foundation. It is mostly, I'll say, matte to satin finish. This is going to be best for oily skin types, so if you are dry to mature, it may not work for you. I know people who don't like this have dry skin, so just keep that in mind. But I do have options available in that blog post, like I said. But this is the most flawless full coverage foundation that I have tried from the drugstore. And if I want a little bit lighter coverage, I'll use the Milani Screen Queen foundation. So okay, this is actually a lot lighter coverage. This is a true light coverage foundation. Milani claims with this foundation that it is good for all skin types. I don't know how accurate that is, but I do have oily to combination, so sometimes I get dry patches and this works fine no matter what my skin is doing and no matter what my hair is doing. Why is it doing that? This is only going to give you medium coverage at best, so you are going to see spots and some discoloration, like acne scars, through this foundation, so keep that in mind. But if you just want a little bit of coverage to kind of even out some redness or whatever the case may be, then this might be the one for you. But if you don't want a really full coverage heavy foundation. And this, the NYX foundation I apply with a sponge. I feel like it goes on a lot better with a sponge. And then the Milani one I actually apply with a brush. because I feel like a sponge soaks up too much of this and there's no coverage at all. So you want to use a brush if you need more coverage. I just feel like a brush with heavier foundations can make them a little bit too cakey. The Milani foundation has a lot of different shades as well. Next, on to concealer. So I have 3 to talk about. 2 are kind of well, they're all kind of similar in a different way. I don't know, I'll explain it. So the first, my favorite, is going to be this e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer. This one does tend to separate, so you gotta stir it up a little bit. e.l.f. has 2 concealers like this. They have the Hydrating Camo Concealer and then they have the regular Camo Concealer. So the hydrating one is going to be obviously more hydrating. It's not going to dry down to a matte finish unless you set it with a powder. But this regular Camo Concealer does dry down matte. It does dry pretty quick, so you want to make sure you blend it out quickly before you move on. Because sometimes with other concealers, I'll put them on and then let them sit for a minute, but you can't do that with this because it's not going to blend out. These are both really good. I would consider these both to be full coverage. I wouldn't say like tattoo coverage level, but for anything on your face, like your under eyes or any acne spots, you're going to be able to cover it with these. And then similar to the Hydrating Camo Concealer is the Milani Conceal and Perfect Longwear Concealer. This one is a little bit more creamy. It's not going to dry down to a totally matte finish, again, unless you set it with a powder. Just a couple options there in case either Milani or e.l.f. aren't available where you're at. I feel like e.l.f. is a little bit more accessible than Milani in most places. So face powder is something that I go through a ton, but I am kind of on the hunt for a new one, but I do have a favorite to show you for all over face powder. The one that I used to use and have used up several compacts of, it doesn't have a good shade range, so I'm not really comfortable sharing it anymore. So once I find one with a good shade range, I'll let you know. This one that I've been using is the Milani Prep Set and Glow Illuminating Transparent Powder. They also have this in a different, like a non-illuminating version, like a more matte. This one has just the slightest amount of sheen to it. Like, it's not going to be truly flat matte. It's going to give you a little bit of definition. But I really like this one. As you can see, I've used a lot of it. I have a backup already. This one I've only been able to find on Milani's website though. I have seen the Prep Set and Go version on other places like Ulta or in stores. I'm not sure if this is going to work for anybody with a more than a medium skin tone, just because some of these translucent powders aren't so translucent. Almost forgot setting spray. And I could sit here and got all this stuff out and almost forgot that. So the 2 that I use the most are the Milani Make It Last setting spray and then this e.l.f. Stay All Night Microfine Setting Mist. I really like both of these. I did a comparison video of these as well, just seeing if they actually made your makeup last longer, and they really don't from my research. Because I took a piece of paper and covered half of my face and then sprayed one half and saw like throughout the day if there were noticeable differences. There were not any noticeable differences as far as how long the makeup lasted before it started separating, but they did make the makeup look better after I applied it. So I will say I prefer the packaging of the Milani Make It Last because this e.l.f. one can tend to clog up a lot and you do really have to shake it. It has one of those like spray paint can shaker things in there. So I would suggest the Milani Make It Last setting spray. This is going to work for all skin types. They also have one called the Make It Dewy. So if you do have really dry skin and you want a little bit more dewy finish, I would go for this one. I just don't go for this one as much personally because I prefer a matte finish. And for bronzer, I have one here to show you, and that's it for drugstore. So this is the Milani Silky Matte Bronzing Powder, and this is the shade Sunlight. This is the lightest one. They have a few different shades. I'm not sure exactly how deep they go. And I am wearing this as my bronzer today. Not like this is my contour, but bronzer is kind of like around here. So this gives me a little more shape instead of looking like a white blob. But I really like this formula. A lot of bronzers for me, because I use so much and I dig the brush in there, they kind of get that hard pan to where you can't really get any off on the brush anymore, but this one hasn't had that problem so far. Then for contour, I have this contour kit from e.l.f. I'm pretty sure they only have one shade of this, so maybe they will expand that later on. But this is, I actually Frankensteined this one, so if you didn't see my last declutter video, I took, basically they have multiple different iterations of the same packaging They have like a cream blush one, they have a foundation one, they have this contour one. And I took these blush shades out of a different one and put them in this contour palette because I had used up the other two. So I just used this shade as a contour, and it used to have a shade in here that I used for bronzer, but I used it up. And then this was a highlighter. It is like barely hanging in there, almost gone. But I use this pretty much every day now for my cheek contour and then a little bit on my nose as well. A couple options for blush. So the first one is the Milani Baked Blush in Luminoso. I'm pretty sure this would work for most skin types, skin tones. And this is actually the oldest makeup product in my collection. I've had this for so long and I've used up about half of it. But it's still going, it's still good, it still works. Usually if powder products get old, they start to lose their pigmentation, but this is still fine. They have lots of different shades of this as well, and they have some really bold, intense shades that would work for deeper skin tones. And e.l.f. has these primer-infused blushes, so I have two shades. This one is in the shade Always Cheeky. This is really, really light, so if you do have fair skin and want a pinky blush, this one is going to be for you. And then I just got recently the shade Always Earthy. And I do really enjoy this one. It's more of a, I want to say a really, really light terracotta kind of shade. And it works for me, but I have to use it sparingly. Like it can kind of get a little bit too much. And I forgot they have these new-ish bite-sized duos. So I use the blushes in these, but the highlighter is a little bit too dark. Like it doesn't really highlight on me. So if you do have a little bit deeper or maybe medium skin tone, then these highlights will probably work for you better than they do for me. But I really like the blushes. I wish I could like depot these and only have the blush because I don't use the highlighter, but nonetheless the blushes are super pigmented. Like this one in Pomegranate, I have to be really, really careful to not overdo it. And then for face highlighters, so the one that I've been using a lot recently is the Milani Supercharged Highlighter Duo. I think it's called Highlighter Duo, and then this shade is called Supercharged. I know they have different shades of this, and this is the lightest one. And this says it has a cream and a powder. I'm assuming that this one is the cream, but honestly, if I use a brush with this, I don't really feel a difference in the formula. So I'm pretty sure they're saying that this lighter one is the cream, and then this one is a powder. This is the most intense drugstore highlight that I have used. I do have this other one from e.l.f. that I recently picked up, but it is not anywhere near as intense as that one. So if you do want just a lighter, natural kind of highlighter, then I would go for this one. It's the Metallic Flare highlighter, and I have the shade White Gold. They also have deeper shades of this as well. I think that was all of the face stuff, so let's move on to eyes. The first thing that you would use is an eyeshadow primer. If this is your first venture into makeup, the number one tip that I have for eyeshadow is use an eyeshadow primer. When I first started with makeup, I did not use a primer, and I was like, what am I supposed to do? Like, it just melted off. Like, no eyeshadow would stick just because I have hooded eyelids and they kind of move, you know. It didn't work with eyeshadow, so once I found eyeshadow primer, it was like, this is it. This is what I needed. So the number one I would say from the drugstore is the Milani one. I know NYX and e.l.f. have ones as well, but I do like the Milani one the best. For eyeshadows, e.l.f. is knocking it out of the park recently. I haven't tried many eyeshadows from NYX or Milani because a lot of theirs aren't vegan, but e.l.f. is 100% vegan. So I have been really, really using the heck out of this e.l.f. Opposites Attract palette, and they have a few different shade like styles of this similar layout of palettes. So they have the Earth and Ocean palette, they have the New Classics, what's the new one called, Retro Paradise. But I really like this one because I'm into these peachy kind of shades here, and sometimes I'll go into these purples. But I feel like when e.l.f. came out with this palette, it really kind of turned around their reputation, because before their eyeshadow palettes were just kind of meh, but these are actually really, really good for the price. So I would suggest if you're looking for a bigger eyeshadow palette and don't want to spend a whole lot on it, I'm pretty sure these are $10. They might be a little bit more than that, I could be wrong, but they're really inexpensive for the amount of shades that you get. And I've used these, like this half of the palette, to death, and I have not hit pan on it yet. I am waiting to hit pan on like one of these peach shades. And I am using this palette today, by the way. And after that, e.l.f. came out with these bite-sized eyeshadows, and these are probably their best formula by far. at least that I've tried. I'm sure like they don't really have that many different varieties, but you know what I mean. So I've done quite a few looks with this one in the shade Hot Jalapeno, and this was a little bit bright for somebody who's new to makeup, but I really like these shades and they are so blendable, and the metallics are really, really pretty. This one a little bit more wearable. It is the Pumpkin Pie, and they also have more neutrals than this one. These are just only two that I have. So there's some brown and coppery tones in that one. So all you gotta do is just take like one of these mats and put it in your crease and then put a shimmer on your lid and good to go. All right, for brow products, I probably should have mentioned these before because that's how I do, that's the order that I do my makeup in. I do brows and then eyeshadow. I have a few brow recommendations. So today I used the e.l.f. Wow Brow, and this is the shade Taupe. The name is all rubbed off of this. But it's basically a little brow mascara that's tinted and also has fibers in it, so it kind of builds up your brows. So I'll just brush this through first to fill in what hair is there, and then I will take another product and just fill in the hair that's not there. My favorite as of recently, I'm surprised that this has lasted as long as it has. This is the Milani Weekend Brow. Milani has lots of other brow products too, but I have not tried many of them. So this one is it almost kind of reminds me of an eyeliner pen, but this is for your brows. So it will help you to mimic that natural brow hair shape. Like you can draw on individual hairs with this if you wanted to. Sometimes I just color in, personal preference. No matter what brow product I'm using, I'll always go back to this Weekend Brow and just kind of clean up around the edges. But if I use a brow pomade, then I will take this Weekend Brow and fill in the hairs at the front of my brow to make it a little more natural, and then just kind of fix the shape around and make it a little more even instead of piling on a thick pomade. But if you don't really care about being that precise, this one is ironically named the Ultra Precise Brow Pencil. And this is the backup. I have gone through like 5 or 6 of these. This is what I used before I found that Weekend Brow. This is a really skinny brow pencil. It's going to be a little bit more waxy and you'll have a little bit more control with it. So like if I just barely, like it's kind of goof proof. Like if I just barely drag it on my hand like that, it's not going to do anything. But you have to make an effort to like draw the brow hairs on there. It's a little bit more mistake proof than the Milani one, because the Milani one, if you touch your skin with it, it's gonna you know, transfer. So it's up to you what kind that you want to use. You don't have to use the brow pen style. You can go for this pencil or you can try a pomade. The only one that I know of from the drugstore that's vegan is the NYX Tame and Frame. I think e.l.f. had one too, but they don't have that many shades. So for eyeliner, one of my favorites is this e.l.f. No Budge Retractable Liner. This is pretty much the only pencil eyeliner that I've used for a couple years now. And I have used up a lot of it, like way over half. I don't use eyeliner that often though, but when I do, I use this one. And this is gonna stay in place all day. It's not gonna move. You can put it in your waterline. You can draw it on your eyelid to create a base for a smoky eye. This is just all around a good eyeliner if you want that pencil style. And then I have one from e.l.f., a liquid. Just trying to see how much is left in it, I don't know. This is the Expert Liquid Liner, and this one I like personally. It's maybe not the most beginner friendly. A more beginner friendly one would be a pen style, but this one has a little pot with a product in it, and then you take this little brush out. I just find that this style lasts a lot longer before it dries out than those pen style ones, so it saves you a little bit of money if you can figure out how to use it. It's a little bit more difficult to use than a pen style, but I think it's worth it for me personally, just because if I don't use them that often, they can tend to dry out really, really fast because I'm like, oh, I've only used it twice and it's already dried out. But this one, I haven't had any problems with it. I've had the same one for a while. Milani makes really, really good liquid eyeliners as well. I don't have any with me right now. Well, I have one that I haven't opened yet. It's pretty much the same style. It almost looks like they literally bought the same packaging, but this is the Milani 17-Hour Matte Eyeliner. And I used to have this one from Milani called the Infinite something liner, and that would not come off even with like the best makeup remover. It was like once you put it on, it was there like forever. A couple of eye things that I wanted to mention really quick were these e.l.f. No Budge Shadow Sticks. So these come in a few different colors, not too many. But I have this one in the shade a Perfect Pearl and then a Rose Gold. These are really, really great for just throwing on your lid for a really quick eye look if you don't want to mess with blending stuff. Like you just kind of throw it on, maybe take your finger and blend out the edge so there's not a harsh line and you're good to go. And this pearl one I use for my inner corner sometimes and it really doesn't move. So if you're finding that, well, right now you probably shouldn't be touching your eyeballs, but if you are like rubbing away or your eyes are watering and the eyeshadow doesn't stay on your inner corner, maybe try this Perfect Pearl and see how that works. Right, and for mascara, drugstore mascaras are not the best, to be honest. Sometimes it's worth the splurge, I think, for a higher end mascara, but this one that I have open right now is the waterproof one from Milani. That's literally the name, is called the waterproof one. It is really, really hard to find a waterproof mascara that is vegan, especially at the drugstore, because most waterproof mascaras will use beeswax to make that waterproof effect. But Pacifica makes really good mascaras, and NYX has one as well that I did like called, I actually have it empty right here. It's the On the Rise Volume Lift Mascara. Most of NYX's mascaras aren't vegan, so just watch out for that. Like mascara is one of those things you really gotta watch because it's hit or miss whether or not it's vegan or if it's actually good. Oh, something else that I forgot. So these are the e.l.f. liquid glitter eyeshadows. These are amazing. I did a whole video about them. I'll link it below if I remember to do that. But these are just, these will just bring your eye look to the next level. Like I probably should have worn one today if I had thought about it. But it really helps to brighten up your eye look. Adds a little bit of glitter, but it's not as messy as a loose glitter or pressed glitter. And they really stay on your face all day, like you don't come home at the end of the day with glitter all over the place. So the two wearable shades that I have are Copper Pop and Pinky Swear. The Copper Pop is a coppery kind of color and the Pinky Swear is a little bit pink. And I do really, really like these and they are inexpensive. There are dupes for these that are a lot more expensive, so I would suggest these. Alright, last category is my personal favorite. It is lip products. I have a few different lip liners here. My favorite is the Milani Color Statement lip liner. Yeah, that's what it's called. And I use the shade Nude. It works for pretty much any lipstick that you put over top of it because it kind of mimics my natural lip color. It just kind of fills in and outlines the outside edge of my lip, whereas sometimes your lip just kind of blends, especially like right here, it kind of blends into your skin and it doesn't look like anything. But this really helps to kind of define that and make a smooth base for a lipstick. So I have some lipsticks that are really, really sheer or a light color and they don't look right at all. They look kind of streaky and patchy if I just put them on my bare lips, but this lip liner really helps with that. Lip liner is another one of those that you gotta watch to make sure that it's vegan. These from NYX, the Suede Matte lip liners are vegan, but they're regular like $4 or whatever lip liners are not. And I have a few shades of this, and they do make a black one as well. I'll mention a black lipstick that matches this, because NYX has these Suede Matte lip liners and then the lipsticks. So usually if I'm using a dark color as well, I'll try to use a lip liner, especially if it's not one of those liquid matte lipsticks that's not going to move throughout the day. And then like I said, to go along with that, I have the NYX Suede Matte lipsticks. This one I probably use the most. It is a shade Lavender and Lace. And they have a ton of different colors of these as well, and these are a matte formula, and they last for a really long time, especially if you use a lip liner underneath. And a new favorite of mine, actually what I'm wearing today, is the e.l.f. Seriously Satin lipsticks. And I used to have lipsticks from e.l.f. way, way back in the day, like probably 7 or 8, maybe almost 10 years ago. I really can't remember, a long time ago, but they were not that great. But these are actually really, really nice. So I normally don't go for satin finish lipsticks. I will go for a matte, especially liquid lipsticks, but these are amazing. My lips have been really dry lately, just out of the blue for no reason. These are great. Like they just kind of cover over your dry patches and go on smoothly. It lasts for a decent amount of time. Today I am wearing the shade Nectar, and it pulls a little orange on me, but it would definitely, I would consider this to be a neutral kind of color. Even this color that I have called Sugar Plum, this wears really, really well. Usually a satin or a cream lipstick in this kind of color, like a really dark one, will just look terrible at the end of the day. It'll be like, you know, going outside of your lip lines and getting all over your teeth. But this one actually wore really, really well. So I'm super impressed with these e.l.f. Seriously Satin lipsticks. And then last actual makeup product is this Ludicrous lip gloss from Milani. So if you watch my videos, you're like, is Abby recommending a lip gloss? Yes, finally. I don't like lip gloss. I wouldn't wear it on the daily, but I wanted to try a few just to give you some recommendations, because I know a lot of people like lip gloss, especially if you have drier lips like I do right now. I have tried a few, and this one is by far my favorite that I've tried. I do have one from e.l.f. that I have not tried yet, but other people really, really like. Let me grab that. This is the e.l.f. lip lacquer. A lot of people like this one. I have not tried it yet, so I will update when I do try it. But I do not like overly thin formula lip gloss. Like, I have one from a different brand that's not drugstore. It just feels like it's going right into my mouth, and I hate it. So this one is a little bit thicker and kind of, I would consider it to be a little bit sticky. Well, not like your lips are sticking together, but it's a little bit thicker, and it really stays on your lips, lasts for a little while, instead of just kind of going all over the place and getting in your hair and in your mouth. And this has a really interesting applicator. It's a little bit different than a traditional lipstick or traditional lip gloss. So I have to say I would recommend the Milani Ludicrous lip gloss formula. This shade that I have is called She's All That, and they have a bunch of different shades of this. And then the last thing that I'm going to talk about, I'm pretty sure, is lip balms. So I usually only use like one lip balm all the time, but I've been trying to find new ones because my lips are horribly dry. Like I said, for no reason. I don't go out a lot, so it's not like I'm wearing a mask and the mask is like making them dry. I really don't know. But this Fruit Fetish one from Milani, this one is a little bit easier to apply than the other one I'm going to talk about. But it's in one of those old school lip gloss kind of squeezy tubes. And it has a little bit of a tint to it, but it really helps to lock in hydration. You'll want your lip balm to not just disappear and sink into your skin. You want it to sit there and keep the moisture that you have from disappearing. So this really helps to do that, and the tint is a bonus, and it smells really good because this one is the pumpkin spice. And then e.l.f. has their Ride or Die lip balms, which are a cult classic now. I have the shade Tough Cookie and this one called Just Peachy. I have been using the Tough Cookie one just because I have it open. And this one you do have to squeeze off onto your finger, or maybe even a lip brush if you really don't want to touch your lips. But I will use a really hydrating, like this one. I know this is not technically drugstore, but I use this Meow Meow Tweet lip balm, and I will put this on first because it's really hydrating, but it doesn't have that emolliency where it will stay on my lips. So I will put that on and then use either this e.l.f. or the Milani one. So I think that was everything for my drugstore makeup recommendations. Let me know if you guys have any questions or any specific types of products that I didn't mention. And I'll have this all on a blog post as well. Probably be Sunday, so depending on when you're watching it, I'll link it below when it's up. Click up here to watch my most recent video, or click up here to watch my last video about cruelty-free makeup. And give this video a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss seeing my face in your subscription box every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. The links to as many of these products as I can fit in the description will be in the description below. And the links to my social media and my blog will be in the description as well. And I will see you guys in the comments. Bye.